In a world of fantasy, filled with magic and monsters, humans have always been at war with all the demonic beasts in existence, but dragons are something that they hated more than anything. That was the reason why a group of incredibly strong adventurers managed to enter the ancient dragon's lair, and after trapping it completely, the hero of their party delivered the killing blow. The legendary dragon wondered why would these humans want to kill him, even though he has never done anything to harm them. But his time was not done in this world, as he gets reincarnated as a human to a family of farmers in a small village. His parents name him Dolan, and he grows up to be a pretty capable young man who is haunted by the memories of his past self as the dragon. He tries to ignore it and works every single day on the fields, as farming is the only occupation in this region. Kids are considered to be fully grown at the age of 15 in this world, which would have been a lifesaver for Epstein. But being an adult means that they have to live on their own and manage their own life. One morning, Dolan meets up with his ugly brother and they go over to the nearby river to fish. His brother asks Dolan whether he is going to the swamp tomorrow, as it turns out that some mysterious things have been happening near that area. But the captain of the village guard is busy playing Red Dead 2 and doesn't want to investigate. Dolan decides to take this opportunity to test himself and figure out whether he has any talents, or is he just as useless as his dipshit brother. After catching a buttload of fish, he returns back to the village where he meets up with a hottie named Mal and a blonde French named Albert. They are impressed by the amount of fish he managed to catch, while Dolan thanks Mal for helping him train to take on any monsters in the swamp. The French idiot calls him Mon Ami and tells him to run away if he sees Shrek in the swamp, as he has become pretty salty over the years. Dolan ignores him and walks back to his house, where he salts the fish and hangs it for drying, as he remembers that their village is on the outskirts of the kingdom, which means that they don't have enough soldiers to protect everyone, so they need to protect themselves on their own. A little while later, a red-haired lowly calls him for his daily magic training, so he walks over to his teacher's house and uses an incredibly powerful magic spell, which impresses the old hag, who claims that his offensive magic is one of the best that she has ever seen. Later that evening, while he was returning to his home, he ends up running into a white hoe who looks like a rich noble man from 1800s. The old chief of the village introduces the bitch as Christina and tells Dolan not to act retarded, as she is a noble lady who will be staying here for a couple of days. Dolan simply shakes hands with the noble thought and lingers for a moment before leaving. Dolan immediately realizes that the noble girl is incredibly skilled and wonders what she is doing here. But he doesn't have enough time, as the sun was setting, so he gets a move on and walks towards his parents' house. The winters here are incredibly harsh, so they always collect a lot of food beforehand, so he decided to drop some off at his parents' place. He is warmly greeted by his family, and his mom cooks a bomb dinner for them as usual. After dinner, his dad tells him that he should get married quickly so he can also treat his wife poorly and send her to the kitchen where she belongs. But Dolan tells his dad that he wants to haul out his life a little more before getting settled. The next morning, he leaves bright and early for the swamp, but finds out that half the village is there to say goodbye. The roided-up captain tells him to leave quickly so he can go back to his PS5, while the old hag tells him that her fortune-telling shows a little danger. He doesn't seem to care though, and after getting some weed from the lowly, he decides to be off on his way. After traveling for several hours through the lush forests filled with monsters and wild animals, he finally reaches the swamp, which has turned green in color and smells disgusting. He decides to put his hand in the dirty water like Gordon Ramsay checking kitchens, and realizes that the chemicals are all wrong in the water, and that's why no one can survive here. Before he could do anything about it though, he hears the rustling of some leaves and turns around immediately. He knows that only a very strong monster can survive and stay near these conditions, so he grabs his sword and gets ready for a fight. The monster reveals itself to be an incredibly beautiful half-snake blonde bimbo who looks at him and asks whether he has come alone. Dolan doesn't know what is happening, as these demons are incredibly rare, so he reveals that he is here alone to check on the swamp conditions. The bimbo immediately starts behaving like a stripper having a seizure, which only confuses Dolan, but she tells him that she is not here to fight. Before he could understand what's happening though, a giant monster emerges from behind her and tries to crush her beneath his paws. She screams for help, and thankfully, Dolan comes in clutch as he slashes the beast's legs off before grabbing the blonde hoe and running away. The monster seems to be made out of muck, as he easily regenerates its leg, while Dolan and the girl hide behind a giant shroom, which would have made Mike Tyson very happy. A little while later, the monster moves away, which gives them a little room to breathe. But the thought immediately asks what the hell was that monster doing here. Dolan replies that the monster is an earth elemental which seems to have gotten cray-cray. Somehow this woman has never seen this monster even though she is a beast herself. But Dolan explains that this area used to be controlled by the lizard people, who sometimes used to do business with the villagers, but lately they have disappeared completely. He believes that this monster is the reason why they all might have vanished from the area. He wonders how did this elemental come here, and remembers that there was an earthquake in this area not long ago, and it's very possible that this monster was born out of that. He turns towards the thought and asks what her name is. The girl replies that her name is Cell, and she is from the breed of monsters known as the Lamias. Dolan has heard of these Labias or whatevers, as they are famously beautiful and are known for their impressive magical skills. He asks whether she would like to fight together, but she is not very confident in herself, claiming that her magic is not the strongest and she might embarrass herself. He tells her not to worry about all that and simply provide backup, as he will go in the front and attack. Cell agrees, claiming that she will try her best to provide support, but she isn't very confident about whether she can trust a human that she just met. Dolan finally gives her a signal, and they both go on the offensive, coming out of their hiding places and attacking the monster. The giant beast immediately attacks them as well and shoots mud pellets at Cell, but thankfully Dolan comes to the rescue yet again and slashes them off effortlessly. Meanwhile, Cell takes advantage of this situation and chants a very powerful spell which creates a red magic circle out of which a giant snake emerges and starts choking the earth elemental without even asking for consent. Cell starts having trouble maintaining the spell, but this was enough of a distraction for Dolan to quickly gain ground on the monster. The monster finally destroys the snake spell and attacks Dolan, but he manages to dodge it before jumping on top of the mud demon, slashing it cleanly into 2 pieces. Cell is relieved to see that they have won, but the monster's shit ends up dropping all over her, getting her dirty. Dolan immediately rushes over to her, checking whether she was hurt, and then thanks her for helping her take down the beast, as without her, he wouldn't have been able to close the distance so quickly. He claims that she must be cold and dirty and should get cleaned, so by the time night falls, they manage to find a small shack where they can sleep while Dolan cooks dinner. Cell, with her massive plots, asks Dolan whether he is not scared of her at all, and he replies that she is not like the other Lamias that he has encountered. Cell is surprised to know that this man has seen other Lamias, and Dolan replies that the Lamias he met before her were much more aggressive and wary of humans. He asks what was she doing so close to the human settlements, and she claims that she has recently turned 17, which means that she is an adult now and needs to leave on a journey to find a husband for herself. Dolan is pretty interested in this, obviously, and Cell replies that Lamias are all females, and they only give birth to females, which means that they have to find a husband from a different race, as they have no other choice. She claims that Lamias were created after a woman gets cursed, and because of the curse, their body creates poison which not a lot of people can tolerate. That's why it's hard for them to find a man who can survive that. Dolan wasn't even paying attention, as he was wondering where he needs to put it in a snake, but is snapped back to reality when Cell claims that her father is also a human. Dolan decides that he needs to nail this date, so he pours some of the most disgusting soup I've ever seen in my life and offers it to her. She excitedly eats her dinner and loves the soup, asking whether it was made by milk. He smiles and replies that his mother told him how to make it, and every single winter they would all huddle together around a fire and drink their soup while talking. Thinking about his family reminds him of the time he was the divine dragon, always lonely in his own cave. But now things are better, and he has people who he trusts. The next morning, they both get dressed up, as Dolan decides that he won't act like a desperate incel and play hard to get. He tells Cell that he would be heading back to his village now, while Cell replies that she will continue her journey south to keep looking for her husband. Dolan smiles and wonders whether their paths are bound to cross again during their journey, but decides to leave for now, as his adventures are just starting. The next day, Dolan and the redhead Loli learn how to cook like Walter White and Jesse Pinkman from the old hag. She tells them that unlike normal medicine, magical medicine needs to be prepared with much more care, because just a tiny bit of imbalance in the ingredients can be life-threatening. The Loli seems to be a pro, as she gets the recipe right in the first try, but Dolan fumbles and ends up giving himself blue balls. The old hag tells him that he needs to have better control over his fingers, otherwise he won't be able to keep his girlfriend happy, and he apologizes. The lowly Aerie tells him that it is not the case, and he can keep any girl happy because she is sure that he has a cannon between his legs, and the old hag realizes what's going on. Dolan ignores her words and says that it is true that he isn't good while working on such precise recipes. Aerie is a bit upset, but then the old woman inspects her medicine and says that she did it perfectly. She dismisses her for the day and tells her to go out and play now. Meanwhile, Dolan is thinking that as a dragon, he never got sick so he didn't have to worry about medicines, but now he can't manage to do the tiny adjustments. The old witch also tells him that although he is good at offensive magic, he needs to get better at magical medicines, but there is no need to rush. She tells him that he should take his time and try out different approaches to find what suits him the best. Later, Dolan gets invited over for lunch by Aerie's family, and as they pray to the goddess Myrael, he thinks about how he has not seen her since a very long time. After lunch, he runs back home, but the village cowgirl stops him and offers him her milk. Dolan knows that the cow lady's milk tastes heavenly, but he doesn't want to act desperate. He tries to refuse, but by that time she has already squeezed out some milk in a cup. Dolan gulps it in one breath and then runs to the French idiot Albert, who is training some kids to become future knights. They stop training as soon as they see Dolan and rush to show their progress, but he is not interested. He tells them to take a break instead, and then suddenly, he senses the presence of a monster coming from the forest. While Dolan doesn't say anything about it to Albert, he enters the forest at night to see what is happening. He thinks that the presence felt quite familiar, and as he goes deep into the forest, he finds the glow of a campfire. Dolan goes close and finds that it was actually Sel whose presence he felt, and right now, she is in the middle of a hot sponge bath. She freaks out on seeing the pervert Dolan staring at her without any hesitation, and falls back. Dolan quickly rushes to her side and stops her from falling and dirtying herself, before asking what is she doing here. Sel covers her plot as she tells the pervert to stop watching her, and he asks why. He says she looks beautiful and her beauty isn't going to reduce just by his stares. She says that it is embarrassing for her, and he should also have some shame, but like a total Chad, Dolan says that all living beings are attracted to beauty, so there should be no shame in watching her. That earns him a tight slap, and even after covering up, Sel is upset at him. Dolan still doesn't understand what he did wrong, but he changes the topic and asks Sel what is she doing here. She sadly says that all the men she met on her journey were afraid of her, so she came back to find Dolan. Even she was quite scared of humans, but she worked up her courage to greet them. But they didn't even give her the chance to explain herself and ran away as soon as they saw her tail. Dolan thinks that he lucked out to have this thought back, and says that he had been wishing to see her again. He suddenly realizes a way to get her to stay longer, and then asks what does she think about staying with him. Sel freaks out and asks what does he mean, and Dolan says that she can live with him in their village. Sel thinks it is impossible because people will be afraid of a monster like her, but Dolan explains that they already have demi-humans and beast folk living with them, so she would be eventually accepted. As for her being a Lamia, Dolan believes that people would be afraid at first, but her gentle personality and enormous plot would win them over in no time. Sel is overjoyed at the idea that she can be friends with humans, and gladly accepts to live with Dolan. He too says that living with her will make his life more enjoyable, and there would be some good perks for her too. Sel wonders if he is talking about the nighttime exercise, but Dolan has something better for her. He says that when they start living together, she can have his life energy anytime she wants. He stretches his hand towards her and Sel nervously takes it. Dolan sends some of his life energy into her body, and Sel feels a river flowing between her legs. After she is satisfied and smiling, Dolan tells her his plan. A few days later, the roided-up knight captain and his troops find a huge boar and some fishes at their doorstep. The same thing had been happening for some days now, and everyone is curious. The redhead Mal points out at the trail of a giant snake on the ground, and another girl says that it must be the half-snake monster that they have recently spotted in the forest. The captain knows that Lamia are powerful and dangerous monsters, and he doesn't understand why would one leave her prey here, so he decides to inform the village elders about it. Everyone wonders if the monster who is leaving delicious meat on their door is their enemy, but the knight captain tells them not to be fooled. He says that a monster will try to hurt them in the end, so he suggests that they form a unit to kill her. Others tell him that they should not take any risks because Lamia are powerful monsters and suggest requesting backup from the capital. The old hag, however, doesn't agree with them. She tells the knight captain that no matter how much he cares about the village, he should not take rash decisions without considering all things first. Just then, Eri comes to the room with a weird pot in her hands and tells the hag that she did the fortune telling just as she asked her. The old woman checks the results and says that the fortune reading says that the appearance of a snake is a good fortune, so they must not harm the Lamia. Dolan was chopping wood outside and listening to everything. He is delighted when he hears that the old witch has convinced everyone to give the Lamia a chance, and in the evening, he runs to the forest to share the good news with Sel. He tells her that there is no immediate threat to her, and now they are ready to move to the final phase of their plan. Sel thanks him for helping her, because he was the one who told her to leave meat offering outside the village and even helped her hunt. Dolan tells her to not mind it, and then explains the final part of his plan to her. The next morning, all the capable fighters of the village and the knights gather for a joint training. Captain Balan tells them about the monster called Lamia and says that they need to stay on guard against her. Albert tells Dolan that all of the village's big shots are here, and he realizes that Balan still considers Sel as a threat. However, all the important people here are just what Dolan needs for the last part of his plan. Balan and Mal aside, the most important person for his plan is the priestess, who is greatly valued in the village because she can use healing and purification magic. She represents the church and has the power to declare Sel good or evil. Dolan wishes that everything goes well and the priestess doesn't judge Sel as evil. He looks towards the forest where Sel is trembling with fear and anticipation. Last night, Dolan told her his plan, which included him jumping into the den of low-level monsters and Sel saving him from them. He told her that once she saves him, no one will call her evil, and she will be set to live in the village. She is not sure about it now, and wonders when is she supposed to take action. Dolan is also waiting for that moment patiently, when a soldier comes running from the forest and tells the captain that he found the monster. Everyone thinks that the Lamia is here. Even Sel wonders if there is another snake girl here besides her. Just then, a giant armored bear appears there, and all the knights crap their pants as they see it. Captain Balan tells everyone to slowly head back, because they can't even think of fighting the armored bear, because it can kill them with one hit. The kids start running, and the redhead cowboy falls to the ground. The bear notices him. Dolan rushes to save the boy, thinking that the only way to stop the armored bear is using his dragon powers. However, just as he is about to reach the boy, Sel leaps out from the bushes too. She shields Dolan and the boy with her body, suffering a severe injury from the bear's claw in the process. Everyone is dumbfounded to see this, and then Sel turns towards the bear, using her innate hypnotic powers on it to send it back to the forest. The bear obeys her and heads back, and everyone is surprised by Sel's powers. Dolan asks Sel if she is fine, but she asks him if he is blind and can't see the blood gushing out from her wounds. Just then, the knight captain slams his weapon on the ground and tells Sel to get away from the villagers. Balan asks him to come too, but Dolan asks him not to hurt Sel because she saved his life. Balan says that despite that, she is still a dangerous monster, and he cannot let her go for the safety of the village. Dolan stands up to him, saying that he was not taught to repay kindness with cruelty, so he will stand by her. Balan decides to question Sel before doing anything else, and asks if she has been leaving the offerings outside the village. She affirms, and then bows before him, asking him to let her stay in the village. She talks about how she left on a journey following the customs of her species, but it was too lonely and scary of an experience. She just wants to stay in the village for a bit, and swears that she has no hatred towards humans because her dad was a human too. She swears that she won't harm anyone and begs them to let her stay. No one is afraid of her anymore, and Balan turns to the priestess for her opinion. The priestess is standing still, staring at the sky as tears flow down her face. A divine light shines on her, giving her a message from goddess Myro. After the divine message ends, the priestess declares that Sel is not evil, and the goddess told the villagers to live in harmony with her. She approaches Sel and tells her that she is welcome into the village. Sel lifts her head to thank her, but then suddenly faints because of the blood loss. Dolan catches her, and she is hurried to the village for treatment. The next day, Sel has recovered enough for Dolan and others to show her to her new house. Sel can't believe her eyes, and when she goes inside the house, she finds many cushions and a stuffed toy on her bed. She is moved by the gesture of the villagers and thanks them. Balan says that he should be the one thanking her for saving his son's life, and then apologizes for pointing his weapon at her. Everyone welcomes Cell to their village, and then Dolan introduces himself to her in front of everyone to pretend that they didn't know each other from the get-go. A couple days have passed by, and now Cell seems to have totally melded with the villagers as she talks and laughs with them as if she has been here her whole life. Dolan is obviously delighted to know that his efforts were successful and decides to thank the goddess Myrael himself. That night when he was sleeping, he decides to leave his body in an astral form and immediately launches himself towards the night sky. He finally enters what looks like heaven in his dragon form, and the beautiful goddess Myrael is ready to welcome him. They make small talk, and he thanks her for saving Cell from being killed by the villagers. And Myrael replies that the Lamia seems very nice, so she had no choice but to save her. Dolan still finds it hard to believe that a literal goddess managed to recognize that he was a dragon born in a human form, but Myrael simply laughs, claiming that his life force was much stronger compared to the others whenever he decided to pray. She claims that he always seemed so sick of living when he was in his dragon form that it really surprised her to find him happy and fulfilled as a human. Dolan replies that when the hero's blade pierced his heart, he literally felt no anger or sadness over his death. In fact, he was a little relieved to know that his life was over. But as a human, he has made some lovely memories staying in the village, and how the humans live each day to the fullest because they have such short lives. This gave him a new perspective, and he started enjoying every day of his life on Earth. Myrael smiles and tells him that lately he seems to be a little too happy, and claims that this might be due to the snake bitch, as even Cell is happier than usual ever since she came in this village. Soon he returns back to his physical body, and the next morning, he is woken up by a happy Cell who bursts through the door telling him to get his ass out of bed. Dolan tells her to knock before entering, as he sometimes likes to bust one before starting his day. Cell apologizes but claims that he needs to get up as today is going to be an amazing day again. It turns out that Chris the Night Woman, who is strong and independent, is having a practice sparring match against the Vice Captain Mal. The entire village is standing around them, watching them go at each other, while the men try to decide who is more strong and independent. They realize that Mal doesn't seem to be going all out right now, and even Chris notices that as their swords clash once again, so she backs off, and tells her to go all out this time. Mal decides that it might be time to show this city thought how things are done in the country, so she takes her dagger out and tells her to get ready for real now. The battle starts once again as Mal attacks Chris with her dagger, which is blocked, but she immediately uses her sword to try and stab her in the face. Chris already expected this, so she easily moves aside before finding a gap and striking the sword out of Mal's hand, disarming and defeating her. Chris immediately pulls Mal up back to her feet, claiming that she is one of the best fighters that she has ever sparred against, which makes Mal blush as she starts questioning her sexuality. Balin decides to break the tension as he slaps her on the back for the effort and congratulates Chris for her victory in this tremendous show of swordsmanship. Mal, on the other hand, straight up invites Chris over for a party, and everyone in the village rejoices as Chris wonders what kind of drugs these fools are on to be this happy. Later that night, Chris and Mal decide to head up into the tavern together where they order some grub, but the serving wenches are too thirsty for Chris since she looks like an average K-pop artist. Soon Balin and the others also arrive as the captain immediately asks Chris to drink with her. Albert the French warns her not to accept this invitation as Balin is an alcoholic just like my father who will drink till the morning and then beat his wife later. Mal tells Balin to piss off as she calls dibs on Chris, so Balin decides to back off and instead starts playfully choking his homies out, while they scream yes daddy. Later that night, Chris returns back to her bed where she lays down in her combat clothes for some reason, and looks outside the moonlit window to find Balin taking the two guys back into the barn for a tumble in the hay as friends of course. She decides that she can't sleep with all the noise in the barn, so she heads out near the mountain for a late night training session, when Dolan and Cell end up spotting her. They walk up to her while Cell the dumbass who is blind I guess asks Chris whether she is practicing with her sword. Chris replies that she is just practicing to be a weed whacker, which gets Cell's juices flowing as she asks whether she can whack her weed. She takes them back to her house, claiming that it's very nice and comfy, and turns on the light to show the bed filled with hay and an assortment of pillows. Cell immediately jumps on the bed, claiming that she gets the best sleep on this bed, and immediately asks Chris to join her. Dolan wonders why are these hosts so thirsty and tells Cell to rein it in. But it seems like Chris is down to be nasty as she jumps on the bed anyways. Dolan decides to stand by the wall in style for some aura points, while Cell claims that she is really loving the village and hopes that Chris is having a good time as well. She tells Chris that she needs to drink some of milk that Balan's wife personally produces and claims that everyone in the village loves drinking Balan's wife's milk. Chris is kinda weirded out by this, but different strokes for different folks, so she lets it go. Dolan starts talking like a main character about how life in village is hard and honest. But the girls are not interested in that horse crap as they pull Dolan back into the bed with them for a fun night. The next morning, Dolan makes his way to the tavern where everyone is drinking the milk that Balan's wife freshly squeezed out, while he openly challenges anyone to drink his wife's milk more than he can. Weird, but okay. Soon the door opens and Chris enters the tavern as well, and she is immediately greeted by friendly faces all around, while Balan calls her over to try some of his wife's milk. Chris decides to give it a try and engage in this weird custom. She chugs an entire mug down in one sip and realizes that the milk is actually freshly squeezed, and watching Chris guzzle down his wife's milk gets Balan excited as he immediately challenges her to a drink-off. They quickly start chugging of glass after glass, while his wife worries that at this rate, she might end up going down a size. At the end though, Balan turns out to be all talk as he can't drink anymore and ends up losing to Chris, who has no trouble keeping all the milk down. A little while later, as Chris was talking to Dolan and Cell, the cowman approaches her and asks whether she could do her a favor. She claims that she wants her to try something new and offers her a jug of milk, claiming that it's the first time her daughter has produced milk. Now this is getting a little too creepy by the writers of this anime. But I have to recap. So Chris the disgusting freak drinks that milk as well, claiming that it was sweet and fresh, and even asks for a second serving, which gets her a big hug from the daughter. Weird fucking anime. Anyways, a little while later, Dolan takes the two bitches back to his farm to make them do some hard labor, which Cell is pretty happy to do as she plants down the potatoes unevenly, while Chris starts punching the soil like a knucklehead for no reason. Before he could teach her something though, one of the guards runs up to them and tells them to immediately come towards the village gate. They immediately start running and soon find Balan alongside some other villagers already at the gate. Once there, an outsider commissioner immediately has both Dolan and Cell surrounded by a bunch of guards as he asks whether he is the one who brought a Lamia monster in the land which belongs to their king. The village priest immediately claims that the Lamia has been vetted out by the village oracle herself, and she has confirmed that her references match out and she is not evil. The commissioner however claims that he doesn't doubt Goddess Myrael's wishes, but if she has to live like a citizen of this country, she must go through procedures of the government. Dolan finds this fishy, so he requests the commissioner to let him accompany them to the capital, and the commissioner agrees. Just like that, both Dolan and Cell are escorted by the royal guards back towards the capital. Chris starts getting worried about this situation and decides that she should meet up with the headmistress of her institution, as she has great influence on the government, so she uses her spells to boost her speed and leaves for the capital herself. She reaches the capital before Dolan and Cell, who are still traveling in the carriage, and she immediately gets a meeting with the elf headmistress named Olivia. She tells her to sit down and claims that Cell will not be eliminated since she has Myrael's blessing, but tells her that a high-up mage in the government named K sees Cell as a threat because of some recent disappearances. Chris claims that Cell would never do anything like that, and Olivia agrees, claiming that the Lamia was nowhere near the disappearances, but suspects that K simply wants to have Cell killed illegally for some other reason. This surprises Chris as she wonders whether poor Cell and Dolan know what they have even gotten themselves into, as she prays for their safety. Olivia tells Chris that Kay has too much influence over the government proceedings, and they cannot do anything to stop her. Chris is furious at this, and requests Olivia to at least make an effort, but she replies that anything they do can be used against them. However, she is worried about something else too. On the other hand, the carriage stops in the middle of nowhere, and a soldier tells Cell and Dolan that the commissioner has called them. They go to the old man, who is standing in a quiet spot, and he tells them something shocking before leading them to Kay. The creepy witch welcomes them with a fake smile and then orders the commissioner to write a report in the meantime. Inside the mansion, Kay's servants lay out a feast for their guests, and she tells Cell to feel free and eat anything she wants. She says that Cell must have been worried when she got summoned here so quickly, so this is just her way to make up for it. Dolan thanks Kay and says that they would have to come to the city sooner or later to get Cell's paperwork anyway, so it just saves them time. Cell also thanks her, saying that when the soldiers showed up, she thought they were going to kill her. Kay comes clean with her and says that she was planning to do that in case it was found that Cell was using her hypnotic powers to control the villagers. However, that was not true, and she has no plans to kill someone as innocent and beautiful as Cell now. As they begin eating, Kay tells Cell that she has seen many Lamia in the past, but she is the prettiest of them all. She says that she likes everything about her, from her hair to her scales. Then suddenly, she reveals her true colors, saying that she almost wants to eat Cell alive. Cell is shocked by this female Jeffrey Dahmer, but then suddenly, the drugs mixed in the food hit her, and she loses consciousness alongside Dolan. On the other hand, the old commissioner reaches Olivia's office, and Chris is shocked to see him. She asks him where are Dolan and Cell, but he ignores her like the homeless guys outside KFC, and says that he needs to talk to the headmistress of the academy. He asks Olivia if he should talk in front of Chris, and she gives him the permission. The old man asks Chris if she has heard about the recent kidnappings of young women in the city, and she affirms. She tells the commissioner that none of them have anything to do with Cell. He asks her to calm down and let him finish the story. He says that there is a female mage in the city who is over 300 years old, and they suspect that she is behind it. The mage is a human, and they suspect that she is using some forbidden magic spells to live so long. And this time, she has taken an interest in a Lamia. Chris freaks out as she pieces the information together, and the commissioner says that they don't have much time if they are going to save her friend. Back in the basement of Kay's mansion, she is ready to perform her experiments on Cell. She admires her beauty and life force and then picks up a blade to skin her before doing anything else. However, before she can harm her, Dolan tells the creepy witch to stop. He frees himself from the restraints, and Kay asks if she messed up the drug dose. Dolan pays as much attention to her as you pay to the donation request from Wikipedia, and begins examining the magic circle on the ground. He realizes the witch's deal, and asks her how many people she has killed. It is Kay's turn to ignore him now, and she says that he can't be a normal human because he tore through monster leather. She throws the blade at Dolan to test him, and he dodges it, before sternly asking her again how many people she has killed. Kay replies that she stopped counting after 100, and Dolan asks her the reason. She tells him that she loves all things beautiful and wants all of them for herself. So she just collects whatever she finds beautiful and uses it to enhance herself. Dolan knows that this spell is forbidden and asks if she made a deal with the devil to learn it. Kay affirms and then says that she has got her body parts from various creatures. However, she is getting bored of her old skin that has started to come loose now, so she was planning to replace it with a Lamia's skin. She says that she can become even more beautiful this way, and then suddenly, Cell asks her if she brought her here just for this reason. On seeing that even she is awake, Kay wonders if her drug is so weak. Cell runs to Dolan's side and asks the witch if she led the other women to believe her as well before she betrayed them. Kay says that they were doomed to live pitiful lives anyway, but she saved them by putting their beauty to better use. Cell has tears in her eyes on hearing such horrible things, and she says that the old commissioner was right about her. Kay is a bit surprised to hear his name, and then Dolan takes out a communication device hidden inside his ear that has been transmitting their entire conversation to the commissioner and others. Kay still can't understand the reason behind this, when suddenly, the wall is blown up and Olivia enters there with her unit. As Chris goes up to check up on her friends, the commissioner orders the soldiers to arrest Kay. Olivia apologizes to Dolan and Cell for using them as baits, but she needed proof of Kay's wrongdoings so that they could punish her. She realized that Kay was going to blame Cell for the kidnappings and then report that she was killed while trying to escape justice. This way, she could use Cell's body as she pleased. Olivia and Chris tell Kay that she can't become beautiful by these methods, and the only thing that can help her is a rebirth. Kay becomes pissed on hearing this because they have insulted her lifelong struggle to become more beautiful. She was born really ugly, and both her parents left to get milk because they didn't want to see her face. When she first realized that she was ugly, Kay snapped and began attacking every beautiful thing she found. She killed a woman to steal her hair, and then killed an elf to wear her skin, before killing a beastwoman for her arms. With her newfound beauty, she got the attention of the devils, and with their help, she began kidnapping beautiful women to add more to her beauty. Now that her plan has been fouled, Kay is really angry, and she decides to use her 300 years worth of research to destroy all her enemies. She suddenly transforms into a big, fat, and ugly creature, which reminds me of your mom. She attacks Cell, but Dolan gets her to safety. Chris asks him what the hell is that thing, and he says that it is a fusion of various creatures made possible by the help of devil's power. Kay attacks the soldiers with her tentacles, and these dumbasses can't even defend themselves. Cell uses her cursed eyes to stop Kay, giving the soldiers a chance to run. However, stopping something so big quickly drains her power, and Kay attacks her. Chris steps in front of Cell and slashes off Kay's fingers, but she immediately regenerates them. Chris awakens the true power of her sword and runs towards Kay, slashing her arms and tentacles with precision. This makes Kay furious, and she summons hundreds of eyes over her body to use dark magic. Chris somehow blocks it, while Dolan is trying to draw a magic circle on the floor. Olivia wants to help her student, but she can't summon powerful spirits underground. As she wonders what should she do, Dolan gets up and tells the girls that he will handle things from here. Chris trusts him and backs away, and Olivia sees that Dolan has drawn 2 magic circles on the floor. He plans to use an attack spell and a barrier spell at the same time, and she is impressed. Before killing her, Dolan asks Kay if she is happy now after all she has done. She tells him that she has surpassed human limits and became incredibly beautiful, and Dolan says that she deserves to die just for this huge lie. He activates his magic spells, covering Kay in a barrier and then shooting magic arrows at her. Her body disintegrates because of the attack, and then the barrier compresses and explodes, leaving no trace of her. The next day, Dolan and Cell are in Olivia's mansion, where he begins to tutor Cell because she has to give a written exam to get her paperwork. She gets a migraine just after reading a few lines, and Dolan tells her to take it slow. He tells her that she needs to learn the language of this country if she wants to live here, so they don't have much of a choice. Cell then apologizes for getting them locked up in this mansion because she used her cursed eyes last night. Dolan tells her that it is no biggie, and they begin sipping tea. Soon, Chris arrives there to check up on Cell's progress, and not much later, Olivia and the Commissioner also arrive there. The Commissioner apologizes to Cell and Dolan for getting them involved in the incident with Kay, and Cell gets flustered. She tells him that there is no need to apologize because they were happy to help and nothing went wrong. Dolan says that he was quite surprised when he heard the plan, but thanks to the antidote that the old Commissioner gave them, Kay's drugs were not effective on them. The Commissioner then gives Cell her documents allowing her to stay in the village without giving any exam, and she is really overjoyed on receiving them. After that, Olivia tells Dolan that there is someone else who wants to meet him, and takes him to meet a guy named Denzel, who is the son of the old hag in the village who teaches him magic. Denzel and Dolan catch up on old times, and then Cell introduces herself to him. Denzel says that his mother writes about her in her letters, so he knows about her. He then offers to give Cell a tour of the city, and she gladly accepts. In the market, Cell picks up a fruit from the road and gives it to the boy who dropped it, but the boy's mom pulls him away in fear. The entire crowd there is afraid of the Lamia, and Cell gets sad on seeing this. Dolan comes to comfort her, so she says that they should buy some gifts for everyone in the village and return there now. He agrees, and then Denzel tells Cell that he will give back the fruit on her behalf. Later, Dolan and Cell are about to leave for the village, when Denzel and Olivia exchange glances, before inviting Dolan to join the academy. Denzel says that he heard about his extraordinary magic power that could be refined here, but Dolan says that he has got his hands full at the moment. Suddenly, Olivia walks up to Dolan and whispers that she can sense that his soul is different. She tells him that if he wants to use his powers to help people, he should come and widen his knowledge in the academy. Denzel also tells him that if he learns more, he will be able to protect the village better. Dolan says he will think about it, and Cell becomes sad, thinking that she is going to be away from him. After that, Dolan, Cell, and Chris leave for the village. In the carriage, Dolan is lost in thought about joining the academy, and Chris encourages him to join it because it can give him experiences that he can't find in the small village. Her words begin to increase his interest in the academy, leaving Cell even more anxious. If you liked this video, please subscribe to the channel and watch this next video on your screen.